Well, my point is, I know that.
I've got the answer for you.
Okay, great, because I want to hear it, because my foster parents, I mean, it's, you know, for them to come in, like you come in with we have all these subcultures. I mean, you have a culture in your organization, but you have a subculture in your community, you have a subculture in your church, and there are all these subcultures that affect you. But, so you're initially gonna come in with the cultural upbringing that you came in with. Like you said, my parents parented me this way, and that's the way that I've learned to parent. But I got an aha moment to this introduction to this new paradigm of strengthening families, an approach to just valuing people, period, and respecting self and others. And so you take that and say, what have you done with it? So you change your way of thinking, which ultimately affects the way that you behave, right, your morals and your values and all of that. And so that's your family, and maybe even some of your extended family, but beyond that, what's happening? So what are you saying?
That's a lot. Beyond that.
I'm not.
If we got there, we would save the world.
I'm not. No, you can't save the world, because she is one of. We still are one of a very few that is able to extend beyond your immediate community. And I'm thinking, I'm way past that. I'm way past what we're doing. I love what I'm doing, and I'm doing, you know, and we've been doing it for 18 years. But that still isn't reaching far enough for me.
Right.
I still see these people coming in to treat our children, and 92% of the kids in care are African American children. I wouldn't even care if they weren't, because we get Native American kids in our program, we have Caucasian kids in our program. So I'm extending beyond that, but I'm saying the people who are really responsible for the healing process, we're not reaching them as much as I'd like to see that happen. Are we doing it with our foster parents? Are we doing it with our foster children? Are we doing it with our staff? Are we doing it with ourselves? Yes, we are.
Right.
Yes, we are.
Well, let me say this, Shawn, and I really
So
appreciate.
I'm where Ross is. He's saying, I think you're saying our arm needs to extend beyond there. So Al is saying, I'm trying to do some of that. I'm going to the universities. I'm going.
But
So
we're saying that we are the ones who can do it.
mm-hmm.
Because we have practiced it,
Right.
consciously practiced.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing we're not saying, which is the answer, is that first and foremost, strengthening is not therapy. So it's not dependent upon an elite class of people who have the answers to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means, it gets opened up. Because I truly believe that the research will tell you that the healing elements are within the family. And they need
Everybody
a
has
context, they have what they
They
need.
just need somebody to help them tap into it.
There you
We all
go.
have what
There
we
you
need.
go. There
We
you
all have
go.
what we need. I say that to my kids, my families, all the time.
That's what
Right.
strengthening is.
That's right.
We are not going to be dependent on social workers. I'm a social worker, and in many ways, I don't even believe in social work anymore. There are excellent social workers. I mean, superb, pioneering. One right here.
I got
But-
all of that.
Yeah,
You got that.
yeah.
But that's not what regulates.
But let me finish
Well, I mean,
though.
we
Yeah.
ultimately do not get to choose. Because if it were left up to me, I could care less about your credentials and your license.
Hey,
That
I'm
has
with you.
absolutely
I'm
no
with you.
value to me at all.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not. I want to know what your philosophical approach is to healing children and families, and I want to know what your skills are in
There you go.
actually integrating that into the
And what
healing
you gonna
process.
say?
I don't care about how many license letters you have behind your name.
Right.
That doesn't impress me at
Right.
all.
Right.
But this whole system is regulated
Yeah,
that dictates that we do
Sure.
value that.
yeah.
That we do value that. And not only that, but it says that nobody else is going to provide these services
It's coming.
unless they have. But
It's
that's
coming.
what I'm
Those services,
Like-
but there's
like-
no law or regulation
Right.
that addresses strengthening, and there never will be.
Right.
It's like free code. What's the word I'm looking for, Greg? Free,
Like,
you know, There are programs that are free. They have a name for it. It's you don't have to buy it and license it.
Freelance?
No, it's a different term, but it's in the electronic world where there's a whole group of people believe that you shouldn't be paying Microsoft and these people for this stuff. It should be free. And that's what they write. Everything, and it's on the internet. You can get it. But this is my point, and I'm not going to belabor it. Family strengthening is not dependent on social workers. We have standards and ethics and principles of strengthening. We have a model that supports the consistent approach to it, bringing people into it, recognizing when people's own experience. And they're natural strengtheners. You know these people in your family who would walk into a therapy practice and wipe every PhD out. You know, people being clustered around. We can recognize those people, we can bring them in, because it's strengthening, it's not therapy. It is already a mandated extension of your therapeutic services, though, because you're expected to work with families in a cultural competent way, recognizing their strengths, to support their relationships with their children, their extended family, and community. That's already part of what we expected to do. So we have the ability to bring up a service network that is a strengthening network, not therapy. We don't have to deal with regulation. We have to have an ethical approach to what happens and what doesn't happen. We have to have oversight. We have to have those things that are important, just like you have in a family, where the father or mother will say, hey, certain things can go on in here, but other things can't. But we don't need regulation right now, what happens. We can do that. We're free to do it. We're free to realize the essence of what you're talking about. And guess what? You start doing that in the community, and it becomes a generator. Because people start talking about that. People start, they start coming to that. It always happens. You, in a neighborhood, I'll use an analogy. You go into any neighborhood, I don't care how broken down in Baltimore City, right now. You got somebody in there who, on one corner, there's somebody who can cook anything. You got somebody who, if you got some kind of illness and you're interested in people who have knowledge and experience with people using their own world to figure out, well, how do we work with this? These people go to these people all the time. And you better go see Aunt Jane. Because you know what? She worked with that boy and he did thus and thus and thus. Send him to work with Uncle John. And he's kind, but he's structured, he's fun. I mean, these are all the things that are really resources in the community. You start doing strengthening in a community and recognizing strengths, you begin to mobilize a process and you get these emergent things that begin to happen. And see, so that's reaching out there. That's this thing that I think we're all tied together on, because we want to change the world. And I think that strengthening is really such a powerful entree, and it's not encumbered because it's not regulated. It can't be regulated, and it shouldn't be regulated. But it can be a service that actually people get supported and even paid to provide. There are many services like that already that are not regulated, but they're paid for. There's value in them.